Ugh, that's awful. Sorry to hear that.
It's okay.
I'm really excited to sit down with you. I'm actually a very big fan of your work, so.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so, all right, then I'm gonna go up and screen share. Let's see what we got here. Okay, so have you gotten to watch any of the other critiques?
Yes, I've watched lots.
Okay, great. So it's gonna work the same way. You're just going to give me some feedback and let me know about creating the image and what went into it, and then you rate it on a scale of 0 to 3. 0 being, why would I bring this to you? It was an utter failure. 1 being that it showed promise, but you had some problems with it. You didn't quite hit what you were trying to accomplish. 2 is commendable, and 3 is exceptional. And then I'm going to agree or disagree. But here's the thing is that I will very rarely rank it higher than you think its value is. But I'll rank it extra low if I think that you're being conceited too.
Cool, no worries. Okay.
Right.
Do you want me to just kick in?
Yep,
okay.
Tell me about this image.
So I'll say first up, the images that I've selected for this critique, I deliberately selected a different set. So the first level that I put in was more about me as an artist and a creative. My second group of 5 that I submitted was more about running on a theme around black and white portraiture. And for this set, what I've tried to demonstrate is a little bit more of where I'd like to be. So just to give it that context. The first image came about for an online fashion magazine in Australia. I had shot a cover girl competition for them. And so it's just everybody in jeans, everybody in white t-shirts. And basically the online viewers voted and selected the winner. This young model was the winner, and this was her chance to do a cover shot and an editorial, 15-image editorial for this magazine. And so this was January this year. And I was, first time I got to do this for a magazine, and I was given the task by the editor-in-chief and owner, you create it. And so the edition was coming out in our autumn, and as a result, I needed to come up with a concept around, well, I believed around autumn. I had free reign, and this was in the middle of January. So for us, that's summer, very, very hot, everything's green. And so what I wanted to do was create an autumn feel. I was also given a couture designer that had studied in France and all sorts of things, pretty cool. And I was given a choice of her collection and what I wanted to select and use. So this gold dress was an inspiration for me because I felt it had the autumn tones, and I wanted to create that feeling. So I actually picked green leaves, microwaved them, painted each leaf by hand over several weeks to create massive big tubs of leaves. Now, this particular image was just one of, not a cover shot, but just one of the images in the editorial. But I selected to put this in because this was about the creative process for me. It was about the feel of the image, not necessarily about a perfect image. And because it was about the process, what I had was, because all this was being videoed as well, I had a videographer throwing leaves. I had my daughter, who's my wonderful assistant, throwing leaves. I had the makeup artist and the fashion designer all throwing the leaves in the air, and the capture was actually done live. So while we worked on posing, etc., it was more sort of free-flowing than a constructed image, if that makes sense. And it was about capturing the moment in the image. I better have a quick look at it myself to remember now. The elements that I would question now, looking back, that I didn't question at the time, would have been perhaps a little bit more light on the right-hand side of the model, although I deliberately lit it with an octo from above, top left, because I like that painterly, beautiful soft light. and it was about having the drama of the darkness of the background, the leaves feeling like they could be falling. I also had a big industrial fan blowing as well. It was a lot of action happening at once with an awful lot of people standing around. So that's basically where I was at with it. As far as achieving what I wanted, I would give it a 3. But that's about the feeling and about you know, the emotion behind what I wanted to create. I loved her engagement. You know, I was very happy with her styling, and the effect of the leaves was what I was looking for.
Okay. I'm in agreement. I think these are beautiful images. So it's important to note that in the interest of personal growth, I am a huge advocate for not looking at other people's work when judging your own. So if we were to put you in the majority of all of the images that have come to critique at level 4, you're definitely at a 3 comparatively, but I don't care about that. I care about what I see in your work compared to what I see with other images from you and personal growth that's showing, because I think that's where the competition should be.
Yep, good.
That said, this is beautiful. I love the elegance of her and the body language. The dress is killer. I love that you're a creative like me and that you took the time to hand paint all these leaves, which in hindsight and the time it took you, you probably could have just let them age naturally and gotten the same effect, which I've done a few times. But it is part of the creative process, and knowing you have your hand in every element that came together with this. I
picked the makeup styling.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. It's got that sort of 1920s elegant Hollywood kind of timelessness to it that I think is really appealing.
It was a great Gatsby feel was what I was looking for.
Yeah, you totally accomplished that. I do agree with you that I think it's just a little dark on this side. So we start to see like just little hints of the leaves here. But I would have liked to have seen a little bit more. Is this down here, is that the edge of her dress? Does she have a train that's under the, okay. So
a very, very long train, so I draped it around.
Okay. I feel like that gets lost in translation a little bit. There's a little bit of a disconnect just because of all these leaves. So it almost comes off and looks like a splash of something or glitter. Sparkling. And I actually think that that's a little distracting because I kept spending time looking down here trying to figure out what that was. So it might actually be better to just clone this bit out with more of the leaves and let all of the focus be up on this gorgeous back element of the gown. The only other thing that I have to say really is that I love the light on her and the highlights and the sparkles, but I wish that we would have caught just a little bit more light in the eyes. And a little bit more catch light. I think that that would have really, really taken it over the top. So it's right on the cusp between a 2 and the 3, but I think you're exceptionally talented. So I'm going to hold you to a higher standard and give you a 2 for this one.
I'll accept that.
Okay.
And I've never revisited to re-edit. You know, I had to have it ready within 3 days in a series of 15 edited images, and but yeah, beautiful. I agree.
Okay. All right. So let's go to the next one and tell me a little bit about this one.
Okay. So look, like all creatives and you know, part-time photographers, for me, it's about finding models that inspire me and are helpful for the images I want to create, but then I have to create things for them. So this particular young lady, Carol, I've done a lot of work with, absolutely love her look. And there was an image I was wanting to create, and she wanted a very clean, commercial, fashiony sort of editorial feel image. So this image, she wanted to be able to be shot in this hat. And so that's the basis of the image. When I took the image, this is the first one I've ever done like this, so that's why I put it in, to find out how I could improve it. What I liked and how I positioned her was in front of a softbox grid, vertical, quite a large one, very close to her, as you can see from the catch lights in the eyes. So you get that window feeling. And of course, I've moved her in so that I wanted the hat actually cutting through the image and her being revealed from underneath of it. So I'd love to know how to improve it. I probably, you know, give it a 2. But can I say that I haven't laboured over editing or anything else? It was a very quick image, simple. She loved it, went into her portfolio and on her website, and that was great.
This is a really beautiful image. I love it. And I think that it works well. If we're shooting from the standpoint of fashion and showcasing the clothes as far as an editorial, I think I would have liked to have seen just a little bit more of the detailing on the hat here, if that's the feature, because it's almost secondary to her. She's
there's
like
probably more beauty.
Yeah, so it depends on what your thing is, because if it's a beauty shot for the model, it's gorgeous and you hit it.
Yeah.
Like the posing's perfect. If we're showcasing the hat, no matter how gorgeous, how sexy, how lovely the model is, she's essentially a beautiful coat hanger. And it's hard for people to think about that, especially if they shoot portraiture a lot. So that's where the element of
more coat hangers.
Yeah. There's very few things in beauty editorial, but they do get retouched slightly differently. One of the things is that her face is smoothed and retouched just a little bit more than I see on the chest. So softening these lines a little bit, I think, would be helpful, and just making sure that the texture on the neck and down the chest, the arms, the legs, like all of the body has to match the texture of the face, whatever's in the image. And it seems almost like the sharpness is more focused here on the collarbones and the freckles here than to the top. And I think that's because of the retouching on the face, not because the focus was actually off. So just some food for thought there. You have beautiful catch lights in the eyes, but they're still just a little bit dark. You're also fighting with the brim of the hat and not limiting the light, especially in the far eye here. And it's also difficult when you have models that have very dark irises to begin with, because it's difficult to separate the iris from the pupil. But I always want to see that separation. So I think you could probably go in digitally and just dodge and burn a little bit to pull that color out and just separate the iris so that it's not one dark ball, it's 2, because the iris should be, you know, circling.
I find that hard with Asian models because of the almost black eyes.
Yeah.
And yet she's got such a beautiful look.
Yeah, it is. It's stunning, and it's nitpicking to the point of perfection, but I do think that it makes a difference, and really that for me will really, really make the image pop when you can get that. And it's harder to do with Asian models, with Middle Eastern models, with Hispanic models, because as a general rule, their pigment and the color of brown is a darker color brown than you have with other nationalities. So it's interesting. But I do think that it's gorgeous. Go ahead.
With the skin, I mean, I've now learnt frequency separation, which I hadn't learnt at that stage, because this is probably 12 months old. But I wanted to know how to improve it. So that's what you would suggest on the skin edit, move into something like a frequency separation to smooth and keep consistency.
Yeah, I mean, whatever the method is that you're using, just make sure that you're paying as much attention to the other areas of her skin and flesh that are exposed as you are to the face. You know, it's like women that use heavy foundation and it's not the same skin tone and they get that pancake face. I see that a lot with editing, where people are softening and spending a lot of time, and then even if it's done exceptionally well, it's noticeable that it's done because they didn't pay the same attention. So if you work, and I'm sure like you work with a good team, so your makeup artist carries that color all the way down the neck into the chest when she's doing that, so that it blends out and there aren't lines of division. You just have to be careful to do the same thing digitally. But yeah, frequency separation is probably the best way to do that evenly and consistently.
Yes, my daughter taught me to do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. She's really talented too. There's just, other than that, the only other things that I would touch base on is that when the girls have their hair dyed, I'm always careful to blend in if the roots are showing to not give that away for them. So I would go in and lighten this up and blonde that out a little bit right along the root line.
I did try to dodge it, but it actually went weird on me. So I'm not sure how to do that.
Okay. Well, I'm going to do, I don't know what your schedule is for the rest of the day, but I'm going to do a hangout, probably around 8 in like 2 hours. And if you want to send me the image, I'll sit down and do some retouching and just walk through a couple of steps so that people can take them and adapt them. Even if you can't tune in, if you send it, it'll be available for rewatch in the community.
I've already sent that to you on that Dropbox link I sent you.
Oh, okay, perfect. Yeah,
so
then I'll go in.
You'll have you've got a good quality version.
Okay, good. Yeah, awesome.
It's only JPEG, but it's a decent quality.
Good. Yeah, the only other things that I see that would be anything to really pull out, she's got like this one freckle or beauty mark here, and it draws attention just because it's right at the line of her chin under her neck. The highlights are just a little strong here, that I feel like they start to look blown out compared to the rest of the face because it's the only real hot spot on her. So that might be something that we can go down and just turn the exposure down just a little bit right here, with the selection tool. And then other than that, it's such a clean beauty look and pristine that I would probably go in and take out these extra stray hairs that pulled away from the braid.
Yeah.
But that's really, really pulling it apart. And overall, I just think it's a gorgeous image. So it would still get a 3 for me.
Okay. Thank you. And the catch lights are okay, even though they're not round.
I like the catch lights. The catch lights don't bother me. I just would like to see a little bit more lightness in the iris.
Cool.
Okay, tell me about this one.
Well, this one wasn't actually a planned image. So, well, not initially. I tend to be organic in my shooting. So I'll have an initial concept that I want to do. And then in the moment, I'll just sort of flow and go. This particular girl was an actress and she wanted some dramatic artsy images. My mother's 1961 wedding dress, which I loved, and incredibly tiny, size 4 Australian. That's probably 0 in American. The actual image I was creating was her levitating over a pile of sticks on the floor. She stood up and I thought, oh, you just look like a little fairy or an angel. So I actually got her to stand on a box over on another wall. And I tend to like to play with spraying water on this dark wall that I have. It's my favorite wall. And I thought, I'm just going to paint some wings on the wall. So this was an attempt at doing that. So I got her to stand there, play with the dress, and I didn't reset my lighting. I just spun it on around where it was and took the shot and kind of in post-production had some fun. I didn't achieve what I wanted with the wings. And so then I worked with some layers in Photoshop and actually tried to draw out and highlight the wings and bring them forward, but with the sheen of the wet wall coming through to try to, you know, and I kind of liked it. It's more of a, again, I've put it in not because it's perfect, but because of the feeling it's conveying and more of the artsy side of me. I can see a million things that I wouldn't do the same if it was a planned shot, but I'd love to know how you'd like to improve it.
I gotta be honest. I'm not a huge fan of the painted wings. I think that's a little kitschy.
Yep.
So it comes off, for me, when we start to see gimmicky things like that, it's usually an amateur photographer distracting from mediocre work. But I love the shape of the wings, and I would love to see you have an artist actually create these for you. For
I
the
usually
shot.
do them in Photoshop, and usually they look more real, whereas
Yeah.
this was actually about having it look separated.
Yeah.
More of a graffiti feel, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, and I totally think that concept could work, but it's, I don't know, it might be that it's a little too subtle. Like if you wanted it to go graffiti, it might actually be better to do it on a wall where you would see graffiti, or to do it in bold colors that you would expect to see graffiti. I don't know, something's a little bit, just a little bit off with it. The dripping and paint coming down, I think could have probably lended to that and been a really interesting element if it had appeared more throughout the whole course of the rings instead of in just like one concentrated spot, specifically on her right hand side, because it's so bold that you keep going to that bright spot and away from the model. I love the idea. The dress is beautiful and timeless, and I love playing with those kind of elements. And I love that we got this very nice sort of scalloped full feel with the way that she's holding it out, but the under skirt is off center and it's leaning to one side, so it's making her look off balance with the fact that it flans out more this way, and it needs to come down to like here on this side to even it out, because you have a pretty good symmetry and weight going on with her holding it.
Yeah,
I love the dark.
I hadn't noticed that before, so you know that's where it's good to sort of look back, because this is actually an old image, and it's great to see, because I know I could fix that now, but it wasn't something I would have considered. So thank you.
Okay. There's just a few, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of her hands, I think, and the arms with her turning her wrists out to lift the fabric. I think it would have been a little more dainty if she had been pulling some of the fingers and maybe just holding it with 1 to 2 fingers. So we could have got a little bit more of that dancer kind of feel to the wrist. But that also depends on how heavy the dress was and if she could do that or not. But I think seeing like some of the fingers coming off here would have been a nice feature to make it more feminine. She's got this gorgeous mane of hair, but we lose a lot of the texture in it, specifically up the top, because she's got that ombre thing going on. Yeah. And I think because it's so thick and full that it actually makes her look really weighty, because we're not seeing any of those long, elegant lines in the neck. So I think maybe just having it on one side and being able to appreciate the shoulder and the collarbone on the other might have been better. But at the same time, I also like that the symmetry is continuing with the wings and the dress and the hand posture. You have her very symmetrical, so it makes sense that they're both in front. But it would be interesting to see, or if we could have pulled some of that hair behind her and just left a little bit. I don't know. I do think that you could probably go in digitally and just dodge and burn and pull it, because you didn't lose the hair in the shadows. It's just not very prominent, but I am seeing little bits of texture that I think if you went in and just pulled out some of these, that would make it stronger. Again, you're working with a model that has very dark eyes, so you really, really have to make sure that you're catching the catch lights and that they're popping all of the color in them. And I love the gown, but the way that this comes over and you can see the seams of where it's sewn, I would go in and soften these lines, because it's a really strong shape underneath. And it reminds me of like the inserts that they put in certain women's shirts that you see. So that distracts me a little bit from this line, which I do like, which is part of the dress. This one shouldn't be seen. I don't think it was designed that way. So going in and softening it, I think would be helpful. As far as it being a levitating image, I don't know that we quite conveyed that. I think if we had her a little higher,
Mhm.
off the ground, and a little more separation, but it almost looks like her feet could be back here behind the images. Like, it's so subtle that I would never look at this and pull that as a levitating image unless I was looking for the fact that we pulled the shadow in here. So it's well done, but it's so subtle that I think it would get lost for a lot of people that weren't looking for it as a levitating image. As a whole, I
Yep.
don't think that this is on par with your work. I would not look at this image after looking at this one and assume that they were from the same photographer. I don't think this is quite hitting the standard of quality that you've set for yourself. So for me, this is a 1, but
So much older image. Okay.
yeah. Well, that's good. If it's a much older image, then we're seeing tons of growth from here to here in the
Yeah.
quality, and that's good. But this is
It's
a
about a
1.
year, I think, from memory.
Okay. So this is a 1 in the sense that I think that you were totally on to something. And I think where you are now, that you could create something really exceptional with this, with where your skill and your talents have progressed to. But for me, this wouldn't make your portfolio right now.
No.
Okay.
And in fact, I've never done anything like that again.
That's good. I'm glad to see you experimenting. I think that's important no matter how good you get. But
That's why I said when I put these images in, I've actually deliberately thought about what I wanted to show you from different, over a time period of about 18 months. But also, as I said, that one was happened in the moment as opposed to a planned or constructed.
right. Okay. Tell me about this one.
This was, again, from the first editorial for the magazine, same model as the first picture, but different outfit. The reason I put this one in, because this was my first attempt at using a wraparound light from behind. Didn't end up using this one in my submission. I actually went with the editor went with a dark background version, but I shot this one, and I shot an opposite with a dark background, but a similar sort of look, which ended up being the cover. I kind of, I just wanted some feedback on it and ways in which I could improve it. Generally I was happy with so I shot directly into a softbox. Which was something I'd never tried. Rather than bouncing high key off of the wall behind or from the sides, I've actually gone behind and shot directly back into the camera, and then just used a beauty dish with a cover at the front to give the nice catch lights and sort of fill the face. Don't know that I love the hands, but for me it was about the eyes, and it was about planning an image that you could then go and put writing all over. So, picturing it as a magazine cover, I had to be conscious of leaving enough space at the bottom that would actually be covered over. And so therefore I've tilt shifted the bottom because we didn't want it really strong. And then from the eyebrows up would be the actual fashion label. So in the end, the image becomes a very small third around the lips, nose, face, etc. But anyway, yeah, feedback.
Okay.
And again, I'll probably give it a 2.
I'm in agreement with you on that. You have a lot of symmetry going on with this one, in where it's falling off the image on either side, and the symmetry of her face, and the hand gesture, so it's a very symmetrical image. And so the little things that are making it asymmetrical, I think, are what's throwing it off. Like, you almost have to have it perfectly symmetrical when you're composing it as a symmetrical image. The hands, they're a fail for me, and it's that Sue Bryce hands thing. But for me, I'm going to stop screen sharing for a minute so that I can show you. Stop. Okay, so this is very common.
Yes.
And it's like this, but it lets you only appreciate this side, and the hands are interesting because of all of the texture and because of the fingers. And so when we think of what we're interested in and we think of ballet players, and dancers and stuff like that, they're always elongating and moving their hands. And you think of everything that we consider delicate and dainty and feminine, you know, they're lifting their fingers when they're drinking their tea and they're playing, which was the same thing I was saying with the girl with the dress. I think that having some of that flexibility would help. So instead of doing this, where we really only get to appreciate right here, you just want to kind of pull them back a little bit.
Okay.
And I'm a big believer that you don't have parallel joints. I think that it makes the image boring, and I think that it's never exactly even, so that little asymmetry throws off the symmetry of the image. So right now we kind of have like the wrists together and that's it, but they're off just a little bit. Like there's more space on this side than there is on this side between the fingers and the light and stuff. So like, I don't like having the wrists at the same joint. I don't like having the elbows at the same joint. So even when we start to pull it away, I think this has a lot more visual interest than this.
Yep.
You know, and so I'm always putting the limbs on alternate fields from each other and asymmetrical when I'm playing with it. You'll never, like, I very rarely do this or this or this, or like, you just won't see it. It's the asymmetry that sets it for me.
Love it.
Going back to it.
That probably makes sense why I didn't end up picking that one.
Maybe. And it's subtle. Like, it doesn't have to be a huge difference, but just making it noticeably different, that one palm is down here and the other one's up here, will shift it off. The other problem that you have is that your lighting isn't symmetrical. So you have this lighting coming off, but there's very subtle things that most people wouldn't pick up on, like the fact that kids love putting their hands over flashlight or putting flashlights in their mouth because they can see the light through. So because the flesh is so thin on the ear, we're getting this like glow and highlight from the background, but we're not getting it on this side in the same manner because, go ahead.
I was going to say, I kind of liked how it glowed, but yes, about both sides would have been better.
That may be personal preference, and maybe if they were both doing it, it'd be okay. I don't like it. It is fun, but I don't think that it works with a traditional beauty image, because I keep wanting to go and look at it because it's got this like hazard cone orange color, and it's the only place that this color shows up in the image, so it's distracting. A personal preference, but I totally think that you could play with that where you were having a fun image. I also think, again, it's distracting because it's here, but it's not on this one. Same thing with the collarbone. This collarbone is accentuated because of the highlight, and this one's accentuated because of the shadow. So you have these like little separations in the lighting. You know, you don't have the shadow on the main part of the body here. You don't have it on this side because the light is to the left. Now, on the upside, that works beautifully for the catch lights and the placement of them. But it puts the highlights here. And one of the best ways to look, one of the best ways to look for the light is to pay attention to your makeup artists and how they contour. Like, go either talk to your makeup artist or go on YouTube and watch a makeup contouring video and see where they put the highlights to feature all of the features of the face. Because you start to notice, like, you have it here, like this is right, it's like usually right around here and then down the bridge of the nose, which we don't have it, and then the highlights on the face. So if we look at only her right side, the camera left half of the face, you did it perfectly. We have the highlights here, and then the darker shadows here, and then we have the cheekbone accentuation right here, and that triangle of Rembrandt light, and the shadows along the inside of the nose. That's all makeup contouring right there. And so take your hand and hold it over one half of the image and look at the way the light looks and how feminine it is, and then take your hand and look at the other half and look at how much wider her jaw starts to look because we don't have that shadow there. So it's really, really subtle little changes that I think could have really taken it over the top. But overall, this is still a really, really beautiful image. And this would definitely make your portfolio for me. I love the light in the eyes. I love the connection with the camera. I love the styling of it. I think it's beautiful. I just think that if we'd pulled that light over and centered it on her face, or even just brought up a little bit of a reflector, that would have made it stronger because there's so much symmetry in the pose and the composition.
Yeah, no, great. Thank you.
Okay. Next one. Okay, so tell me about this one.
Okay, so this is a more recent one. I shot this, well, I don't know, probably 2 months ago. But yeah, basically, I kind of get these ideas in my head, and then I've just got to go and sort of make them. I was looking at a Japanese designer that I really liked, and I loved some of the imagery that I was seeing, and I just wanted to create a sort of an Asian-inspired, fun sort of beauty type image. Had a couture wedding designer lend me a big gown because I wanted something rather big and dramatic. And my lovely daughter created the headpiece for me. I had given her feedback into the sort of imagery that I wanted and the colors, and basically, yeah. So it was a bit of a collaboration in that respects, and is what we came up with. Model had never shot in the studio, and that's pretty much where it's at. There's other images from this shoot that I liked better. Again, I haven't picked what I think's my best images. I've picked images that I wanted feedback on how to improve.
Okay.
There's some obvious things that I can see as well. So as an image, I'd probably, again, give it a 2. As a creative concept, you know, I'm happy with it. So yeah, basically it.
I love the headdress. I really do. It's really beautiful. I love the styling of this and the high fashion kind of elements. This dress does not fit her well.
No,
So we're
she
showing.
ended up.
Go ahead.
She said she was an 8, and the dress is a size 8 Australian. She turned up and I looked at her and I went, "You're not an 8, you're a 6." So yeah, we actually had to peg it on her.
Yeah. So I think that that's a big part, and a lot of times you have to have like clips in multiple places in order to get it work. But I do think that you could probably go in and just liquefy and warp a little bit to smooth out the wrinkles here, and it looks pouchy right here too. I like the placement of her hand here coming across. I think that that's attractive, but her hand looks awkward. These 2 fingers need to be separated. And again, like we have like this really soft kind of feeling and texture on her face and coming down. And then we kind of forgot about the arms and the hands and retouching. So there's a lot of wrinkles and creases and lines and veins from her hands that are making her hands look 10 years older than her face does. So going in and softening these up, I think would be really beneficial. This one too, I'm just not a huge fan of the hand placement here. I think it's awkward and we're losing the tips of the fingers we can see in the folds of it. So it just makes it look a little, her hands just look a little deformed. For me, that's the biggest issue with this image. I like the halo and the backlight, but we have all of this lightness that falls off the image on this side and then is really tight on this side. So I think a little bit of movement in the light to kind of halo it directly centered would be helpful, because it gets really dark here comparatively, and it feels weighted to one side as a result of that. Her expression, I can kind of take or leave. Like the model look is that sort of blank expression, but she doesn't look blank as much as she does bored. I don't think that she quite hit it in this shot. Let's go in and look. Just a little bit of retouching right here. This is the beginning of age right here, this little shadow and softness on it. So I think taking it and evening up this shadow to match the highlight here and on this side would be beneficial. Touching up the neck lines right here. Yeah, really same thing. Like there's just little ones. I'm always paying attention to these creases and lines because those are not helpful. And just making sure that your skin texture matches all the way down your model. Like we shouldn't be able to see all these wrinkles and lines if we're not seeing any of the ones along her lips or her face or you know, laugh lines and stuff like that. Like if you're retouching all the lines out of the face, then retouch them out everywhere. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I do love the pose. I love the composition of the image as a whole. I love the coloring. You know, it definitely works as an overall concept. It's just a shame that we don't have a nicer line of the body because of the dress. And I think that the skin needs a little bit of work down her body. But other than that, it's a beautiful shot. So I'm gonna agree with you.
I'll have to share with you one of my favourites at some stage from that shoot.
Yeah,
Makeup
absolutely.
artist also was a no-show. So at the last minute, we basically just cleaned up what she had on. So yeah, it was one of those interesting days, but it was fun.
Okay, tell me about this one.
Okay, so this is again from the editorial shoot. This is one I did like. I liked this one a lot. Hang on, I'm just going to bring it up on my side so I can see it better. Yeah, so again, I guess what I liked about this, it was more about that feeling that she was almost like a Greek goddess. It was an interesting gown. The designer insisted that this gown went into the shoot. I wouldn't have put it in. Again, headpiece by the gorgeous Sarah. And I really wanted that sort of feeling of movement because of this long train with this short dress, which kind of didn't make sense, and I was trying to balance it out. You know, I just liked the feel of the image. I was generally happy with it. Yeah, I like dramatic light. I like painterly sort of feels to things. So again, it's just shot with a one light setup. From above. I did have a reflector on the right giving a little bit more fill, yeah, that's pretty much it.
I love this sort of painterly feel to this, and it definitely nods to Grecian art. I love the movement and the texture in the train, but I wish we could see a little bit more of her legs. I feel like it crops her legs right at the knees. And whether you're doing that with the cropping of the actual image or you're doing that with lines of other elements, it's still kind of a no-no. And here I don't think it works. So okay. I think if this came up a little higher, that it would have worked. It's just that it's right at the knee joints here. But
would you do that? Like,
go ahead.
Sorry. Like, so I had the industrial fan blowing and had her twirling around and looking at me, sort of thing, to get the shot. When you don't get that where you want in the moment, would you, you know, warp it up, move it, clone it over?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'll definitely. Okay. You should. You know, I'm a big believer that you try to get it in camera, but if you don't and you have the ability to change it in Photoshop, which I've seen some of your Photoshop skills, so you do, absolutely, I would take it and put it everywhere. You know, with this kind of fabric and movement, I would have been really interested to see it behind her and seeing this just everywhere, you know, like really blowing, and even having like some of your assistants throwing it up and letting it fall and shooting that way, I think would be fine.
We tried that. It didn't look good. So
okay.
Yeah, but I will go back and have a play with it.
Yeah, I do really like the motion of it, though, how it falls and swirls around. It has this very natural water element that I think is really attractive. I am not a big fan of this gown either. So, you know, I understand the designer wanting to show her work, but this one might not be a home run for her and her collection. I don't think it's really flattering to the model. It's not showing off her figure really well. I would be inclined to go in and just touch up here a little bit, maybe pull this in just to give her a little more figure, because there's no waist, you know, like there's no separation between, like, her waist should go in and then come back out to her hips here. And it's not. And I think a lot of that is the cut of the dress and the high empire waist. You know, these wrinkles going up, I just don't think it's showcasing her figure really well. I think if you had brought this hand up, this hand's a little awkward. It's a little paw-like because we're not seeing any separation in the fingers. I think if you had brought it up and actually had this hand gripping the fabric here, we would have created this diamond of negative space, because now your eyes read that her body goes from here to here because it's all white. So creating that space really does change how slender she looks. But the lighting's beautiful. I love the dark, moody feel. I do like the texture. I love the motion of it. I still think it's a success as an image. My biggest thing is just this little bit right here cutting off at the knees. I don't think it's really flattering. I think it makes her short. But it may be a sacrifice that we made for all this beautiful motion and texture that you got here and that you lit perfectly so that we could see all of it. So I'm going to give it a 2. I think that it's still beautiful. But I think you were kind of at the mercy of the outfit and it just wasn't working here.
Okay.
So
and I guess I've got the skills now to fix that skirt, which maybe 6 months ago I didn't. So,
right.
you know, I've learned a lot about playing with fabric since then. So I might revisit that image. So thank you for that.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so we're done the critique. You passed with flying colors. How are you feeling?
Yeah, good. No, that was all really good feedback. And I guess, yeah, when I selected images I wanted feedback on.
Okay.
So that was excellent. So thanks, Jess.
Okay.
That definitely helps and gives me some really strong thoughts around the posing. I liked what you had to say about hands, and I guess I do tend to use one very large light off center because I like the shadows, but I liked what you had to say about thinking about the positioning a little bit to balance. So that was good with the contouring as well. So that was great feedback. I like that.
So your work's really good. You understand lighting. You understand composition. You know what makes a good image. You're good at retouching. What are you in the Arcanum for? What are you looking to do from this point on?
Don't know. Sounds good, doesn't it? For me, it's only ever about learning. So I'm constantly looking for tutorials online, going and teaching myself something, looking at somebody's work and working out how they did it, and then going and having a play with it. I don't tend to do things over and over. It's more about the creative process, the inspiration. If I'm not inspired, I don't shoot at all. You know, I get, I probably had 4 models approach me last night wanting shoots, and I online, and I kind of look and I go, yeah, if I think of something that inspires me to shoot you with, then I'll do it. If it doesn't, I don't. So I've only probably done about 6 shoots this year, I think, because my time's limited. And so if I'm shooting, it has to be something I want to do, or you're paying me to do it. So one or the other.
Are you
yeah,
working?
so I guess.
Are you working full time as a photographer right now?
No. I'm a school principal full time.
Okay.
So I kind of have 14-hour work days, and photography is kind of Saturday morning, which is right now for me. And I'm not looking to change that because I've only got 10 years till I retire. Then I will do my photography full time.
Okay. Is that a money thing, or like if you were whatever you're making now, if I was going to double that and you were going to make that shooting, would you want to stay? Do you love being a principal?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I love what I do. If you doubled it, you'd make me think twice. But I don't know any photographers in Australia making that kind of money.
I do.
So that's good. Yeah. So share me those secrets. That'd be great. But yeah, I guess what I was interested in was the concept of the apprenticeship and the concept of a new set of eyes doing exactly what you've just done for me.
Okay.
So that was my interest. Anything else is a bonus. but I have that drive to constantly learn new techniques. I'm very, obviously I love the technical. I love the creative. I guess what I liked about yourself as a master was the fact that, you do these constructed artistic images. It was that side of your work that I was interested in.
So
anything I can learn along those lines.
Are you looking to start getting a little more creative with the shoots? Like you hand painted the leaves in the first one. Are you looking to add more artistic elements in rather than just shooting fashion on a backdrop?
Yes. I guess it comes down to what ideas are currently sort of floating in my head.
Okay.
So, I mean, I know you've seen some of my Facebook stuff. At the moment, I'm playing a bit with, and the first lot of images I shared in the image defines section, I actually shared some of my work, which is more about experimenting with bringing together traditional paintings of Flemish artists and other people with a reinterpretation with an image. So those sort of images, which aren't at all popular with anybody other than me, I really enjoy doing, because it's about that translation of the traditional fine arts with photography and improving my skills and blending the imagery together. So I've learnt a lot from doing that sort of imagery, but they would be what I would call my projects, as opposed to when somebody fronts up to say, oh, I need some model portfolio shots. And then the constructed sort of art images is what I'd like to do more of. But it's probably more a matter of when I find the inspiration, the right model with the right look, what is it that I want to do. At this stage, I mainly concentrate on studio. Rarely do I do anything outside. And it's probably more to do with the fact that I'm enjoying what I can learn in Photoshop with playing, with editing and things like that.
Okay, very cool. So the critique's a big draw for you, and the separate set of eyes.
Yep.
What else can you be getting from this right now that's making it worth the time and money investment for you?
As I've said, I'm not really patient on time, so they're having to wait.
I haven't gotten that at all from you.
No, you should have. No, I'm a little bit twitchy. Yeah, I have felt that I would have been shooting more if I wasn't actually checking the Hangout all the time, or I would have been editing more. So for me, I've got to be getting more out of it than just the social networking. Probably not much of a social networker. I'm more of a lurker. I watch all the videos, I look around. I've watched a heap of critiques and bits and pieces, and I sort of, I guess my main hesitation in the Arcanum at the moment is that there's very few fashion, beauty type photographers from what I can see and find. It seems to be more family, wedding, landscape type stuff. So, I would like to see more of that sort of thing, because that's my interest. Yeah.
Okay. Well, when you hit level 10, you get invited into what's called the Artist Atrium. So you're in Just JLark and you're connected with Just JLark people. When you get into the Artist Atrium, it connects you with every other apprentice that has achieved level 10. And so you'll get invited into a different community. So you'll be able to connect with a lot of people and a lot of the other masters. So that'll probably help widen that out for you. In the meantime, since you're actually a little bit of a different case, like 95% of people I talk to are like, yeah, I want to do this full time. I just can't figure out how to make the money. So if that's not your issue, it seems like for you, the majority of the benefit isn't necessarily in networking, because you're not trying to take it as a business. You're really just trying to grow your personal art. And find inspiration. So that puts your priorities at a different level. So I would actually venture to go and say, continue lurking and look for things that you can help and things that are beneficial to you, but I would like to give you a homework assignment and set you something that's set apart from everybody else. Can I do that?
Yep.
Okay, so when you get to Sphere 2, after you get to level 20, I do something totally different than everyone else in the Arcanum, and I spend an hour talking to you about your personal goals and build your own custom sphere. So I'm going to give you a little taste of that because I love the idea that you want to recreate paintings and take your inspiration from them. So I would like to see in level 5, after you, instead of doing like the review of your critique for your level 5, I would like to see 30 images from you, 30 links, make a gallery of 30 infamous paintings that really, really move you that you would like to recreate.
So recreate or
do an interpretation of, and yeah, it doesn't have to be like a literal interpretation, but if that's where you really draw from and you go to the great painters of all these different time periods and go, that's my inspiration point, then I would like to see you find 30 of them, pull them out, and then when you come to your level 9 critique, bring images that are your artistic interpretations of those. So that way you're doing all new work and we're putting eyes on you for that. Does that sound good?
Yep.
Okay. And then we'll keep Friday hours so that it's not 4 a.m. on a Thursday when you're getting up for work.
Yeah. So what time is this now for you?
It is 6:30 in the evening on Friday.
Okay. So does that work for you?
Yeah, I'll keep Friday hours and I keep them until 8 to 10 p.m. So that should give you the morning until like noon.
Yeah, which is well, this time of morning's perfect for me because the girls are still asleep. So therefore bandwidth is even less compromised. and I'm always up early anyway because normally I'm leaving in the dark for work.
Okay.
At the moment, I work over an hour away in the city, so and we live out in the country.
Yeah, so we'll keep it on Fridays then, and that'll be the booking day, and you can book time the same way you did today. You can just go to the calendar, but that way it keeps it at Saturday morning instead of Fridays and Tuesdays for you, which is, you know, conflicting with your actual job and work schedule. So, and of course,
can't miss that one.
Yeah, so, okay. Well, I think we're done here. Was there anything else that you wanted to chat about or questions or comments? Good. Awesome. I'm glad we got to sit down.
Yeah, no, that's good. I'm slowly getting it. I guess it's that the map of how the whole thing fits together for the structured learners like me. You talk about all the different spheres, but you know, like there's nothing that says this is how it works, or I haven't found that anywhere.
Okay, well, basically it breaks down. So you're with me for the first 20 levels. These are the foundation spheres. Now, most of us were actually brought on to teach higher levels, but the problem is that we're just starting, so nobody's up there. So we had to teach lower levels, get some people up there so we can move up. So once you hit level 20, you'll have the option to either stay with and move forward with me or pick somebody else that you think that you can learn more from. And there's a lot of great instructors that are doing compositing and more digital, like your amazing image with the water dragon. Like Robin Briggswood, who I'm meeting with next. She's an incredible master. She's tough love too, and a lot of work, but you might really thrive in that environment because there's tons and tons of structure and there's lots of interaction. And I'm more touchy-feely, I think, and a little more lucid and flowy in it. And she's got everything broken down very easy. So if you thrive in that kind of environment, I think her art and skills would be killer in that. The foundation levels, like the first 4 are really getting used to Google Plus and the community, getting you used to the idea of the Arcanum, kind of getting a feel for everything, learning about the library. So those are really the first 9. They're just foundation levels to kind of get your feet wet. In the first sphere from 11 to 20 is where we start to deep dive into art and into business and into your own personal ones. And then
so 11 to 20 is sphere 1.
Yeah, so basically the sphere numbers correspond to the first number. So technically the foundation sphere is sphere 0 because it's 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3. You know, sphere 1 is 11
So
through
that's
19.
what I didn't understand. You know, you talk about sphere 1, sphere 2, and I'm like, well, I don't even know what sphere I'm in.
Yeah, so you're in the foundation sphere, sphere 0 right now. Every 10 levels is one sphere. So 11 through 19 will be sphere 1, 21 through 29, sphere 2, and so forth and so on. So at sphere 2, from 21 to 30 right now, everybody sits down with me like an hour for this and talks about what they want to do, and then we completely customize. So what you're doing is totally different than what every other member of the cohort is doing. That way everybody's branching off towards their personal goals, and you'll start to see that we like ramp up to that in the higher levels. So but for right now, you have passed your level 4 critique with flying colors. I'm looking forward to your homework assignment. I want to see what you come up with. I have a feeling you'll have some of the same favorites I do.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting. Interesting.
Okay.
I'm an impressionist. My problem will be finding models that want to shoot what I want to shoot, and that's always the dilemma. Is that I like these quirky images that I like to make, and they're no good to them. So I do something for them, something for me.
Yeah, it sounds good. Maybe we'll work on that a little bit in Sphere 1 then too, in client interaction and making sure you find them. So, okay, well, drop me a line.
So this hangout that you're going to do, where you're going to use that image, what time's that?
I'm going to do it at 8 o'clock in about an hour and a half.
Okay, all right. I'll check in then.
Okay, sounds good. I'll talk to you then. Bye.
Thanks, Jess. Bye.